Hello, everyone. My name is Dawson Clifton, and in less than 7 minutes, I'm going to talk to you all about how you can pay for college, communal bathrooms, or comfy living. You're probably wondering why I went with this title, and that's because depending on the financial decisions you make for college, you can be living a very, very different lifestyle. So I'm here today to share with you some of those different decisions and options that you have that you can utilize in order to get your college paid for. Okay. If there's one thing I want you to take away, if you don't listen to anything else I say today, I want you to know that you always have options. There's not just one route. So you don't just have to take out student loans. You don't just have to live in a dorm. There are plenty of different things that you can do, okay? And before I get into what those different options are, you might be saying, Dawson, what is the big deal? Why are you so passionate about paying for college? And that's because, according to US News, on average, undergraduate students borrowed $30,062 in 2019, a 26% increase from the previous year. Now, that's already a large sum of money just on its own. But when you can take into consideration the interest rates, by the time you're 35 or 40, that 30,000 could be up to 70,000, and you could actually be paying off more interest than you originally even borrowed. So that's why it's a big deal for me. And by 35 or 40, you want to be worrying about your kids' college and how they're going to pay for it. You don't want to be worrying about something from your past. And now that's just undergraduate alone. That's not even considering additional schooling or anything like that. So what are your options? You've probably heard of a lot of these things like FAFSA or scholarships, but today we're going to be talking just about three that you probably haven't heard as much about: scholarships, PSEO, and picking the right college. So right off the bat, let's get scholarships out of the way. You've probably heard that there are three types of scholarships: athletic, need-based, and academic. So when it comes to academic, yes, the higher GPA you have, the more likely you are to get a scholarship. But you can also see here someone with as low as of a 2.0 or even like a 2.5 is still earning scholarship. This pie chart here shows the percentage of scholarship money where it goes based on GPAs. So just because you don't have a 36 ACT or a perfect GPA, that doesn't mean you're not going to get any money. You just have to know where to look for it. So speaking of looking for it, there are things called private scholarships, and these are just companies and organizations out in the world that have money that they want to give away to students for scholarships. So here are a few random examples. You can get scholarship money for being a redhead, being tall. If you think you have the best duck call, you can apply for a scholarship, related to duck calls, any of these things. And there are more other normal ones like, writing essays about mental health, things like that. But really, I just want you to know that there's money out there. You just have to look for it. Now, my second option, my second recommendation for anyone trying to save money during college is to utilize the PSEO program in your junior and senior year of high school. And this is literally just free college. It doesn't get any easier than this. Basically, if you meet the minimum GPA requirement, which is something like a 3.0 or a 3.5, you can enroll in college classes at your local community college or even somewhere like the U of M. And instead of going to your high school classes during the day, you'll go to these college classes and essentially double dip. So these college classes will qualify for your high school grad requirements, but you'll also be earning credits that you can transfer to your desired college later on. Super simple, super easy. It's the reason that I woke up at 11 o'clock today and the reason that I'm filming right now and not in school. So, and believe it or not, actually 4 out of the 7 state officers are enrolled in the PSEO program. So we highly recommend this. If you have any questions, ask your counselor or send me an email. My final recommendation is to make sure you pick the right college. And believe it or not, this can have a really, really profound impact on how much money you save. So let's look at the basics here. There are 3 different kinds of colleges: 2 years, 4-year publics, and 4-year privates. And the reason that this matters is because they cost different amounts. And I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of each college, but basically one thing that you can do is you can see that 2-year colleges, which are community or technical colleges, are much, much cheaper than the 4 years. So if you take classes that transfer to those 4-year institutions at a 2-year college, you're saving a lot of money. And then basically they transfer over because they're the same class. It's just a different school. So they'll accept those credits and you can save money that way. You also kind of need to consider whether or not you want to go to a public or a private, that kind of thing. And you could make that decision based on considering what these schools have to offer. So if it's a big school like University of Pennsylvania that's really expensive, are you just paying for the name because it has a reputable name, it's a reputable school, or are you paying to go there because they have great research opportunities? What is the reason you're paying them all of this money? You have to remember that we're 17, 18, 19 years old when we make these decisions, and they are truly life-changing decisions that involve hundreds of thousands of dollars. So you really need to think hard about these things. You can also consider things like living costs and location, right? Um, can you live with your parents at home for a few other years just to save some more money? Or is it in California where, room and board is much more expensive? And finally, future goals. And this is something you're probably not going to hear about too much, especially for those of you who want to be things like anesthesiologists, doctors, nurses, even. Where you go to school for your undergraduate is less important for your graduate. So let's take doctors, for example. There's something called match day, and that's to select where you're going to go and work at a hospital for your fellowship, right? And basically that's determined on your graduate school or where you do your MD, but your undergraduate doesn't matter as much. So if you go to a lesser known, cheaper undergraduate school, that doesn't really matter as much. What matters is your MCAT and your GPA. So you could compare and say, hey, if I went to Harvard, I might have a 3.0 GPA, but if I go to the U of M, I might have a 4.0 GPA. And your graduate school, wherever you're applying, might say, we'll take the 4.0 over the 3.0 potentially. Because you kind of have to weigh out those options and remember these things. So in a nutshell, I know that was a lot of information, and there's so much more information out there on how to save money on scholarships, all of these things. But I just want you all to remember, plan ahead, utilize these options, especially PSEO, because once these opportunities pass, they're going to be gone. You can't come back. So utilize them now while you can. And a final note for those of you who are very busy, probably a lot of you are working at a job. Remember that you're probably only making $10 to $15 an hour at a job. But if you spend, let's say, 10 hours applying to 5 scholarships and you only get one of those scholarships and it's $3,000, $4,000, if you compare how much money you get for a scholarship compared to how many hours you put in, it's going to be astronomically more than you earn working at a regular job. So if you need it, take some time off during, scholarship season. It is worth it, I promise. If you have any additional questions about any of these things, especially about PSEO, feel free to reach out. My email is here, my phone number is here. I'm more than happy to talk with anyone about any of these options. Thank you so much for coming to my educational session, and I hope you have a great SLC.